born and raised in Turkey, I'm 81 years old, so that my home language, not only my home language, but my neighborhood language was Ladino, or as we called it, Espanol. We called it Espanol. We need another name now only because it's a different kind of Spanish. So Ladino is the most popular that they use. But at the time, we just called it Espanol, like you mentioned. And that was indeed, speaking Spanish was indeed, as Ray said, the hallmark of being Jewish. Only Jews spoke Spanish, and Ray also alluded to the fact that in some places, non-Jews had to learn the language, and specifically it was the city of Salonika, or Thessaloniki in Greece, where the majority of the residents were Jewish, and the port had to close down on Shabbat, on the Sabbath, because the Jews just wouldn't work. And so the commerce and everything was dependent on the Jewish element. And so non-Jews who had to deal with them had to learn the Spanish language. So that was a very interesting situation. And the main thing that I really would like people to know is that the biggest death blow to our language was the Holocaust. People seem to think that the Holocaust affected only Ashkenazic Jews. It's not so. A large portion of the Ladino-speaking populations of Europe, especially what is now Greece, which of course was part of the Ottoman Empire, was massacred and disappeared. And with it went our language. So of course the nationalistic element factors maybe would have weakened the language, but it was really the Holocaust that did the biggest damage.
Yeah, that's why my research focused on New York City and Istanbul, which are communities that did not suffer the Holocaust. Because otherwise, if I were to focus on the communities, it would be very, very, very difficult to find speakers or even a community. I know of places where there are only like five speakers have left, like in Serbia or the ex-Yugoslavia.
Last question?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, I'll stay real short. So I'm Linda Abelson-Evans. I teach here at SMU, but also belong to a very tiny but diverse Reformed Jewish congregation, Beth El. And years ago, we had Rachel and our Spanish-speaking, some Sephardic members doing a service in Ladino. And I would love to do that again and collaborate with the Sephardic community in Dallas and SMU colleagues and anyone who would like to come. So that would be for the future, and we'd love to have you come back. But the second point is our task force of the Dallas Office of Welcoming Communities and Immigrant Affairs has just launched a database that we've been working on for 2 years that catalogs resources and services for refugee, immigrant, international residents and visitors, anything that they might like to find. It's now active, but we're still building it. So it would be great to add Sephardic and Ladino, cultural and language resources to that for people to be able to find. So we just love to talk to you later about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me at SMU. Appreciate it.
So now we're going to hear a little bit more more from Rachel Bortnick, who is the doyenne of Ladino, not just here in Dallas, but internationally. As you saw, the Ladino Comunidad is the website that acts as a kind of sounding board and clearinghouse for international Ladino speakers. And it's a pleasure to welcome her to the podium to introduce the next portion of our program this afternoon.
Thank you very much. We're now in a more lighthearted session of this program today. First of all, I want to thank Shira for every year for helping us hold this at SMU. Thank you very much, Shira. And thank you, Ray, for a very interesting comparison of the languages and its effect on identity and keeping the communities together. Actually, I wanted to say also that when you were talking, that the question of Ladino or Nuestro Español being the glue that kept our Jewishness had been debated for over 100 years before. And because there were already then people saying we should learn regular Spanish, or we should learn Turkish, we're Turkish citizens, and so on. And the argument for keeping the language was that if we lost our Spanish, we would lose our Jewishness. And sometimes people are pointing to that. You see, that's why, you know, we're not good Jews anymore, because we don't have the language. And it's interesting that just like Yiddish was Jewish for the Ashkenazic world, Ladino was Jewish for us. And here in Dallas, to tie to what Ray said, our Ladino comes in very handy with all the Spanish speakers that are here, and it is very easy for us to just change our pronunciation, make ourselves, they ask me, where are you from? And you have to say, I finally found a short answer. I said, when they say, how come you speak Spanish so well? I say, well, my ancestors were from Spain. That's my answer. So anyway, we will, this session is about folk tales, which was an integral part of our language. I want to, since I'm thanking, I have to thank Dr. Talia Walker Cisneros and her Spanish language students who will be reading a Ladino folk tale for you in a few minutes. Like I said, this session will cover two essential parts, really, of the Sephardic culture. One is the language, and the other is the tradition or habit that we have of telling folk tales, which we called cuentos y consejas, or if they were short, cuentecicos y consejicas, the diminutive. And the protagonist that often appeared in these was a man named Djoha. So the story that you will hear soon, with in Ladino with simultaneous projection in English on the screen, will be about Djoha. Let's see. And after that, we will have a discussion about the differences that the students, or maybe you, noticed between Ladino and so-called standard Spanish. And then we'll have other discussion also. Now, I decided to start my talk with this emblem, or this image that you see in your program, and it appears in every program of Ladino Day, which is done around the world in many places. What was it? Okay, thank you, that's what I needed. Okay, now, this medal was produced in Israel on the occasion of the establishment of the National Authority for Ladino and its culture in 1997. It was minted there. There was a law that was passed in the Knesset, the legislative body of the Israeli government, on March 3rd, 1996, and which established two so-called national authorities, one for Ladino and one for Yiddish, the Jewish languages which were in danger of being lost because Hebrew was becoming the national language. In the middle, you see the word Ladino, of course, in Latin letters below, but what is it about? It's similar to what Ray had there. It is Ladino in Hebrew letters, but these are not standard Hebrew letters. This is called the Rashi script, which is the kind of script that our people used. It was a Sephardic version of Ladino. And of course it says the language of the Sephardic Jews, and Sephatam Shayute Sepharat, which is the Hebrew word. And this is the back side, which is a quotation from Psalms. I wrote the translation. First it says, the bird too has found a home, and the dove a nest for itself. In other words, now Judeo-Spanish has a home in Israel. And below, many Jewish people will know Ashrei Yoshvei Betecha, the prayer which translates as happy are they who dwell in your house, and they will praise you always. So is the house, the home theme. So that's what that is. I wanted to make sure you knew what that was. And this was a Ladino stamp which was issued in the 24th of February of 2002 in Israel, the 5th anniversary of the establishment of the National Authority of Ladino. And I would like to think that it is an appreciation for the good work that the Ladino Authority had been doing, and they had done wonderful work. Too long to talk about. And it was the National Authority for Ladino, or Autoridad Nacional del Ladino y su Cultura, as we say, that the decision was made in 2013 to institute a Día Internasional del Ladino. And here, as Dr. Lander said, we have been doing one every year since then. And the president of the National Authority was Yitzhak Namon, who was the 5th president of the State of Israel and the only native Ladino speaker so far to hold that office. He died in 2015, but in 2014 we have a video that he sent us to congratulate us here in Dallas for having a Ladino Day at SMU. So we're very proud of that. Rest in peace. But the Ladino Authority still is working in Israel. more to what we're actually doing here. And that is that last year, the Royal Spanish Academy designated Ladino officially as a Spanish language. And in Israel, they formed the Academy of Judeo-Spanish or Ladino as a corresponding member. So it's proper and fitting that we discuss those languages today after the folk tale of how Ladino is and is not similar to standard Spanish. Now, about the Sephardic folk tale. I will talk about the image in a minute. The Sephardic tradition is mostly oral. Most of us inherited what we know, not from written texts or published texts, but from what we heard from our parents and grandparents. The Ladino language is inseparable from its rich treasure trove of sayings, proverbs, songs, and folk tales. Many of us my age, or older, who grew up in Sephardic communities, remember the popular evenings of storytelling, especially on long winter nights as we gathered around the warmth of a coal burning stove. Some of the stories came from Jewish tradition and involved El Rey Shlomo, King Solomon, or Eliyahu Navi, that is Elijah the prophet, or the great Rambam, known in the West as Maimonides. But mostly, we remember laughing at stories of Djoha, the protagonist who was sometimes clever, sometimes wise, but most often incredibly naive or even stupid. None of these stories were ever written down. They were only passed forward from generation to generation, and it seems from lookout to lookout also. And some of the themes occur even in other cultures, and some of the characters. Now about the image that you see. The Jewish Publication Society has a series of volumes titled Folk Tales of the Jews. Their first publication from 2006 was dedicated to the tales of the so-called Sephardic dispersion. In other words, these folk tales are not really from Spain, although Spanish places figure once in a while, but they were formed in the diaspora from Spain, in the dispersion. There was actually a volume 2 for the Ashkenazic tradition the following year, and then another one in 2011 from the Arabic-speaking Jewish communities. The 71 folk tales that are included in this book are taken from the Israeli Folk Tales Archive, which is the largest archive of Jewish folk tales in the world. They include moral tales, folk tales, and humorous tales. And most of the humorous tales involve Djoha. It says that these archives have 283 narratives about Djoha, which is one of the largest groups of tales in their collection of 23,000 stories as of 2006. The largest group of stories is about Elijah the prophet, but Djoha comes second. So I thought that was very impressive. The foremost collector and publisher of Sephardic folk tales in the world is Matilda Cohen Serrano, who lives in Israel. Her first book of Sephardic folk tales was named Cuentos del Folklore de la Familia Judea Española, folk tales of the Judeo-Spanish family. And that was in 1986 in Jerusalem. Since then, she has published several more books of her collection, as you can find on Google. I have them all, and I think I have 7 of them. All in Ladino, as exactly as the narrators told the tales to her, and their Hebrew translation. She has one also in Ladino with a French translation. And for those of you, this is one of them, Djoha. And I want you to notice that there are illustrations in this book, but nobody really knows what Djoha looks like, because he was from everywhere at every age it was always in our imagination. Since these things were never written down, we just imagined him as we wished to imagine him. By the way, there are also modern Djoha stories. I'll come to that in a minute. Anyway, this one's called Djoha que dice, what does Djoha say? And for those of you who are only English speakers, there's one book of hers in English, translated from Ladino, and that's this one. How did we develop the Djoha figure? And who is he and what does he look like? I told you, we don't know what he looked like. In Turkey, we always thought or said that our Djoha was inspired from the Turkish folk hero called Nasreddin Hoca. But in fact, many cultures have that, a similar character. Yet the Sephardic Djoha is different. He's also different from the Nasreddin Hoca stories, and I just asked my friend Sherry here, they have it in Persia also, usually called Mullah Nasreddin, similar character, but our Djoha is Jewish, and it reflects our sense of humor, our cultural values, and has only tangential relationship to these other characters. Here's a quote from the book that I showed you before, the Folktales of the Jews, that I think gives a concise description of our Djoha. The single figure, I'm quoting, the single figure in the Judeo-Spanish narrative tradition that is a clear import of other peoples is the humorous character of Djoha. He is the clowning fool in the tales and anecdotes told by Arabs and Turks, his name having transformed from Djoha to Hoja, as the stories about him crossed the Mediterranean from its southern to its northern shores. In the Judeo-Spanish tradition, however, he has remained Djoha the fool, who through his stupidity exposes the folly of others, and through his literal interpretations of metaphors, exposes the ambiguities in our languages. There are some really funny stories about how he takes metaphors literally. Djoha is ingrained in the Ladino language not only through tales and anecdotes, but also in daily sayings. Something that is bad or ugly is como la estrella de Djoha. That means, it literally means like Djoha's star, which means like his fate, pretty bad. And then there's a saying, there are so many, some of them are in this book. I brought it along actually in case I needed more examples later, but I know many in my head. One that we used a lot was Djoha se fue al baño y tocó de contar un año. It is laughing. That means Djoha went to the hammam, to the bath, which wasn't a very frequent occurrence, I suppose, and then found enough to talk about for a whole year. But as you can hear, it's rhythmic. Our sayings are very rhythmic and rhymed. So this is one of them. Djoha has not disappeared from the folklore of the Sephardic communities in the U.S. either. In a 1974 field study in Los Angeles concluded that Djoha stories constitute the largest body of narrative, quote, Djoha stories constitute the largest body of narratives wherein the tale-telling tradition, or the tale-telling tradition of the Sephardic Jews of Los Angeles. And what is even more interesting is that the tradition of making up new stories about Djoha continues. It continues everywhere, in the United States too. If we have time, the last one we will do is one of those from the United States. What does he look like? This is Nasreddin Hoca, the Turkish folk hero. And the Turks believe that he actually existed in the 13th century, 14th century, because there are tales of him in contact with Timurlane. So, and he's always depicted as a man with a turban and a beard like that, sort of maybe Santa Claus-ish. And he's usually wise and very clever in the Nasreddin Hoca stories. We have those in Ladino also, which we call Nasreddin Hoca stories. So that's separate from the Djoha that we made Jewish. This is, I just took this from one story that appeared of a Djoha sitting on his horse. And let me see, which one is it? I can tell you the story. In this story, oops, let me go back. How do I go back? Here. This one? This one? Yeah. Thank you. In this story, Djoha is standing on his horse, trying to pick figs from the fig tree, and somebody passing by says to him, "Hey, you're going to fall because the horse may move and you'll fall." And no sooner does the man leave that the horse actually moved and Djoha falls down. And so he goes to the man and he says, "Boy, you are a very intelligent man. How did you know that I was going to fall?" And he says, "Can you tell me," he asks the man, "Well, can you tell me when I'm going to die?" And the man doesn't know what to say, so he says, "Well, when your hands feel cold and you're probably that means you're going to die." And just then he feels cold. And he lies down, he says, "I'm dead." So he lies down, and somebody comes and takes his horse and runs, takes it away, and he yells at them, "Hey, if I weren't dead, I would come after you and get my horse back." So that's the story. But you see, it can be anybody. It's almost like a cap that he's wearing. So we don't have a standard. But here is the depiction done by my very artistic husband, Bernard, of Djoha. Yes, subtitles will be here. Thanks to
Hello.
So, buenas tardes, good afternoon. While we get set up here, I wanted to also have our students be part of the conversation. We had the opportunity for Rachel to come and visit with us in a class one day, and what it means for them as students in the Spanish language program discussing issues of community awareness, as Dr. Romero talked about, diversity and inclusion, what it means to them to engage Judeo-Spanish Ladino as students of multiple language heritages and different backgrounds with Spanish, Castilian Spanish, what it means to them, what was their experience in hearing, in reading, and being able to create this connection with Judeo-Spanish, which previously they might not have had the opportunity to do. So while we set up, I'd like to have that part of the conversation as well, and have their voices add to the dialogue here today.
Hello, so my name is Cole. I'm from Dallas, and I was raised in, I'm black and white, so I'm not a heritage speaker or native speaker of Spanish. But when she came to class that first time, it was really, really funny, because when she spoke, I could really understand everything for the most part, except for maybe a few words here or there, or that J that's not a J, but it's kind of a J. And so it was just really, actually, a super cool experience for me.
Hi, I'm Melissa Rivera, and I'm from Oak Cliff, but my parents are born from Mexico, so Spanish is my first language. Before she came to class, I've never heard of Ladino, but just as when she was speaking, I could understand her just as she could understand me and my classmates when we were speaking Spanish, so I thought that was really interesting, even though it's spelled a little bit differently. And I found it really interesting, the spelling, because just how it's pronounced exactly the way it's spelled. So.
Hi, my name is Delfina. I was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and both of my parents are from Argentina as well. So what I found interesting is that the pronunciation is very similar to our type of Spanish. And it was also very interesting just to learn about like this Sephardic community and learn more about the history of Jewish people, especially in Spain and other parts of the world. So yeah.
Shira for creating this opportunity, this space in events such as this, our classrooms that extend beyond their walls, in integrating a really rich, unique heritage, linguistic and cultural and political and economic, and what it means, as we talked about that generational divide or difference from Dr. Romero's talk, what it means to have these spaces in which we can come together and literally speak with each other across heritage, across borders, geopolitically or culturally, and learn with each other. So thank you for making the we, as we talk about our mind, making it a we context or space.
It was really my pleasure, because I think there was some allusion to the fact that I've been trying to get people to know about our culture for many, many years now. And when I first came to the United States, people had never heard of Sephardic Jews and couldn't believe that I could be Jewish. And not even my parents had ever heard Yiddish. So I think we're having a really pleasure.
So I'll start. Djoha y el Espejo. Djoha vivía en una casa vidriera y era un poco atrasado. Un día abajo a la ciudad para mercar algunas cosas que tenía de menester. Encaminando por la calle ya vio en la vitrina de una botica un espejo. Se acercó y se le miró, mas y como no había visto nunca espejos en su vida, dijo:
Mira a este hombre, ¿quién será? Asemeja a mi padre.
Entró a la botica y demandó.
¿Cuál es esto allá en la vitrina?
Le dijo el patrón de la botica.
Un espejo.
Le dijo Djoha.
¿Lo puedo mercar?
Le dijo el patrón de la botica.
Seguro.
Y viéndolo tan atrasado, se lo vendió a un precio muy caro. Djoha mercó el espejo, se lo llevó a casa y sin hacerlo ver a ningunos, lo llevó derechamente a la musandara. Y cada día, cuando tornaba del laboro, tomaba un chaycico, subía arriba y se metía delante del espejo, hacía caras y quedaba emblecado ahí por horas. La mujer, viendo eso un día, 2, 3, se ensospechó y dijo:
¿Cuál lo estará haciendo allá mi marido cada tarde? Iré a ver.
Espero que el marido no estuviera en casa y subió arriba. Mas y como ni ella no había visto nunca espejos en su vida, se miró y dijo con rabia.
Ah, ya entendí.
Cuando el marido tornó a casa a la tarde, lo aferró por la yaca y le dijo:
Ah, hijo de un mancebo, tienes aquí una mujer que es una hermosa doncella y estás yendo a aquel cerco que tienes allá arriba.
Cuando Djoha y su mujer empezaron a pelearse y a fajarse, los vecinos sintiendo esta toda barana y llamaron a la policía. Arribó un policía y la mujer de Djoha le mostró el espejo, mas y como ni él no había visto nunca espejos en su vida. Cuando se vio al espejo, dijo:
Ma, si ya tenías polis, ¿de qué me llamaste a mí?
Se fue el policía y la mujer de Djoha tomó el espejo y corrió ante la madre. Le dijo:
Mamá, mi marido tiene una enamorada. ¿Cuál es lo que haga yo?
Le dijo la madre.
Dame, veré.
Tomó el espejo, se miró y le dijo a la hija:
Note si lees, hija mía, de una mujer semejante no tenéis que espantarte tú.
If I may ask, what do you feel was really hard for you in reading this thing, or more harder, not terribly hard?
Personally, I didn't think it was that hard for me, but I was just practicing the J's. It's always gonna get me, but that's all right. Pretty straightforward.
Any comments about what you just heard? Was it, how many of you speak Spanish, regular Spanish? Were you able to understand what they were reading? Yes. Yes? Were there some words that were not familiar?
Yes.
Yes? What words would you say would not be familiar to a Spanish speaker?
I have a lot of notes. Un casal.
Casal. What is casal? Do you remember?
A village.
Right. Casal is a village. Right. Then there is a bird there. The bird is a little no te siquilees. Don't worry about it.
One word I didn't know was chaisco.
Chaycico. That is a perfect Ladino word. Why? Because chay comes from Turkish. And then we add the Spanish suffixes. It seems that medieval Spanish suffix for a small thing was an ico, just like now you say ito. It was ico. So chai, and there's a connecting syllable there. Chaiziko is a little tea, a little cup of tea. So we used to take the little cup of chai, which is a Turkish word, and go to the, there's another word. What was that word where we went? To the, in Ladino, what was it? Musandara. Musandara is another, I don't even know where it comes from. It's not Turkish. No, it means Attic. Yeah, right. So here, ladies and gentlemen, you have basically the differences. I chose this story for a couple of reasons. One is it's extremely silly and funny. And second, it has all these characters. We don't have too many stories that have characters. And also it shows that Djoha was also surrounded by other people. He wasn't the only one, right, in that case. Okay, we have time. So we're going to do one more, but maybe before we do that, I'm wondering if you have any comments either about the language or about the tradition of storytelling. Like maybe you have a similar person in folktales from your culture, or maybe you know other Djoha stories, or Nasreddin Hoca stories, or Mullah Nasreddin story. Any comments about the tradition of telling stories? First of all, why is this tradition, of course, developed long before we had even heard or imagined that there was such a thing as television or other entertainment, right? People had to find ways to entertain themselves, so all cultures have some kind of folk tales. What kind I think, and I've read a lot of these that have been collected, that we don't have is fairy tales. We don't have that one. But, yes.
I just want to make a comment that what I found so charming about the story was it was so clever how they basically give the message that everybody sees things in their own image and interprets it differently. And it was such a simple story. It was said so beautifully, I thought.
Thank you, yes. People see themselves a little differently than other people, right? When they see themselves in the mirror, sometimes we don't recognize who it is, especially as we get older, right?
So in the South African traditions, there's a character very similar, Mandamova. And that's exactly what he does.
What is his name?
Mandamova. Oh, really? Yeah, very similar, right? Yeah. And he's Afrikaans. So it's kind of silly.
He's Afrikaans.
Yeah.
Yes, several cultures, the Yiddish have Hersheli. Herschel, right.
He's a wise man of health.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. Of course, let me tell you a modern one that is also in one of Matika's books that I thought was very clever, and that it seems that Djoha met with his male buddies weekly in Israel, and they all had their cell phones. And for Djoha, it was a relief, like for the other men, to get away from the wife, and so to be with his buddies. And the cell phone rings, so Djoha picks it up, and it was his wife saying, "Djoha, I'm at this car dealer's, And there's this wonderful Mercedes luxury car that I really want. He says, oh, don't bother me here. Go get whatever you want. And so he closes the phone. And so he goes back to his buddies and they start to talk and laugh together. And then the phone rings again. And so he picks it up and the woman says, you know, I'm at this new development of houses and villas, and I really want to get one of those. Says, didn't I tell you not to bother me? Just do get whatever you want. And leave me alone. So he hangs up. And then he says, whose phone is this? We want to make sure you leave here with a smile on your faces and go and, before we go and take a break and treat ourselves with the goodies that we have waiting there. And before you come back to see the movie, which I think you'll like. There's one short story, also newly made up here in the United States by Rabbi Kasorla, who is not Kasorla, Rabbi Mekave from New York, who writes a Djoha story every week in his La Voz Sephardic, an online thing that he sends to people. And so this is one of his later ones that he made up. Sometimes he takes from an English joke that he hears and he transfers it to Djoha. And most of these stories, he makes sure has something to do with the weekly Torah portion, the reading from the Bible. So anyway, this is one of his. So here we are. You're going to hear it in Ladino with the translation, and also it's a good one for the differences between the two languages, I think. Go ahead.
For those Spanish speakers, this is a treat to see those linguistic differences and similarities. So short, but really, really impactful. El chico Djoha estaba en la escuela y no estaba escribiendo.
¿De qué no escribes? Le demandó el maestro.
Ni no tiene péndola, dijo Djoha.
Djoha, le dijo el maestro, Ancina no se dice, yo no tengo péndola, tú no tienes péndola, él no tiene péndola, nosotros no tenemos péndola, vosotros no tenéis péndola y ellos no tienen péndola.
Ah, ¿qué se hicieron las péndolas?
Thank you to all of the amazing students for their contributions and to Rachel and Shira. And we will adjourn for some delicious treats and coffee outside and continue after with our film presentation. Thank you. Gracias.
there's at every turn, it should be this, in translation. So it's going to change, and like I said, the sing-song that we have, that one rabbi said that it comes from the religious discussions of rabbis. That's where we get, because it seems like even in Spain, the Jews had a way of talking that was a little different from the others. That's really what the Judeo-Spanish name comes from, because it was the Jewish Spanish. Even in Spain, not that it's the same language, but that there was a difference in Spain. Of course, in Spain, way back in Spain, they wrote Spanish with Hebrew characters. That's where it started. It didn't start in Turkey. It started in Spain, that they wrote the Spanish language in Hebrew characters. And it was the Sephardic Jews in Spain that developed the script that we now call the Rashi script, which is a variety of Hebrew letters. It's not the standard like you see today. It's a little different. It's called the Rashi script, but the reason it's called the Rashi is Rashi was actually from France, an Ashkenazic rabbi. But when he decided to do his Torah commentary, he copied the Sephardic Jews, the Spanish Jews' script, to use for his commentary to differentiate it from the script of the original Torah. So it became known as the Rashi script, but it actually is a Sephardic script, and it was invented by the Sephardic Jews of Spain, because they didn't want to use exactly the religious Hebrew letters. So they altered them a little bit, and it became the Rashi script. And they also had a cursive writing based on that, which is not the cursive you see in Hebrew today. It's similar, but we can't read.
All languages develop. All languages mutate.
Yeah. Right. I remember Bernard, of course, I'm married to an Ashkenazi. Bernard's father telling me once that he saw one thing that I tend to cut my sentences myself, but one thing that Ray Romero said was about the Ladino newspapers that were printed in New York with the Hebrew script. And so the last one was actually the very last newspaper ever printed in that script in Spanish in New York, and it was called La Vaga, the Arrow. So Bernard's father told me that once he picked up a paper he thought was Yiddish because it was in Hebrew lettering, and he said, he started sounding it out, and he said, that's not Yiddish, it was a Ladino newspaper. So anyway, this movie, of course, is already so many years old. Like Shira said, I know some of the people who were in the movie. The children are now, of course, about 50-some years old. So one of them is a rabbi. And the young man, it took me a while to recognize who it was who was saying the blessing. I think it was for the Shabbat blessing. He's, of course, an old man now. He's still around. He retired from being the cantor on the Sephardic synagogue. In Seattle, there are two Sephardic congregations. It was mentioned in the movie. One is from the Turkish one, and one is from the island of Rhodes. The traditions are almost identical, but for some reason they want to keep them that way. They have jointly another thing that's happening that's very interesting in the United States is that these two congregations, for years now, because I remember when I visited them even 20 years ago, they had this. They have a Sephardic youth camp for children, and they teach them some Ladino.
Where is
it? In Seattle. Outside of Seattle. I don't know where the camp is exactly for children. Summer camp. And so now through the internet, it became known, and people are sending their children from all over to this Sephardic summer camp in Seattle. So these two Seattle synagogues now that are in the movie, they are not, they don't consist of the children of the original founders. They have people from all over the world. They have from Central Asia, from Bukhara, from Iran, people who are not Ashkenazi, but they're not Sephardic either. But as you heard, some of our religious melodies are Middle Eastern. You know, they're Turkish, Arabic kind of. And so they feel more at home with that. They are maintaining the original Spanish, Turkish style. But these people are sort of taking the place of the Ladino speakers. The children, of course, I don't know any American Sephardic couple that is not married to Ashkenaz. I mean, there is an intermarriage. And so, yeah. Gotta go. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for my comment on the transition in the synagogue from Ashkenazi pronunciation to Sephardic.
Yes, yes, yes. Of course, there is a big difference in the traditional Ashkenazi pronunciation and Hebrew, and let alone the melodies are totally different in the synagogue. But we lived in St. Louis for 17 years.
But in Israel, they adopted the Sephardic.
Yes, at first that's the,
I mean, I grew up here in the synagogue, and the Hebrew was pronounced Ashkenazi. I grew up in Illinois, pronounced Adonai.
right.
And many of the other words are pronounced very
Yes.
pronounced
The first time that I attended a synagogue was in St. Louis. It was a conservative synagogue, and the rabbi was adamant about not using the Ashkenazi pronunciation. He was a big Zionist, Rabbi Lipnik, and he wanted people to get used to the Sephardic pronunciation, which is, as Elia said, is the one used in Israel, and not by the Orthodox Israel. Yeah. They even speak Yiddish among themselves. But the standard Hebrew in Israel is Sephardic pronunciation. So here, more and more synagogues have adopted, especially conservative and reform. I don't think many of the Orthodox or ultra-Orthodox.
That's one of the modern Orthodoxy, yes. And then, like in Israel, it's the same thing. Right, modern Orthodox, where the Sukkah, the knitted kippah, that will be with the conservative and reform, and because they're very Zionistic, but then everybody else has to.
Yeah?
So, thank you all for coming. It's been